But first, do you remember your dreaded school days, spending endless hours trying to get your heads around peg and on Gaeilge in Irish class? Well, my next guest has spent the last 12 months trying to do what we did in 14 years. Have a look at this.
Fair, egg false, sa garden. Kita to row.
Oh, fair, yeah, grass.
Yeah, so think of
Fear.
Yeah, shouldn't fair as fair.
Fair. See, Nilasam came fog, like fada, or like, you know, like.
In Clush, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, now, Shem Fog Rush the garden. No.
But Numanam take up all the time.
No,
like
no.
it was basically like wrong a tree problem. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but the reason they were laughing is the Gordy is because, see, the answers are all here.
Please, Mr. Des Bishop. Des, many people spend their entire teenage years dreading their Irish class, and yet you decided to embrace it and head down to Connemara.
I know, maybe
Why?
it was... Well, you know, I mean, when I finished... I've been here for 17 and a half years. I was exempt from learning Irish at school. But I don't know, after I left college, I just kind of had, like, this kind of little inkling that it would be interesting, and that kind of built up over time, and then... You know, when I started making TV shows, myself and a guy I was working with at the time came up with this idea that it'd be interesting to try to learn Irish in a period of time. I didn't know at the time it would be a year, and then at the end maybe try to do a gig, because there's never really been stand-up comedy.
Tell the truth, they were talking about you behind your back in Irish. They were.
Well, actually, funnily enough, that was one of the things always. You feel kind of excluded, you know, like, because everyone's had this experience of learning Irish. Everyone goes on about going abroad and talking about people on their holidays. Yeah. You know, like, oh, do you know what'd be really funny? When I was in Greece, there was people next to us, and we were talking about them in Irish. They hadn't a clue. Oh, it's so funny. Right, so people kind of going on about that. So I remember, actually, coincidentally enough, the day before I went to Connemara, I was on Questions and Answers, and we were doing the sound check, and I asked the audience, what is the Irish word for comedian? And John Bowman said, oh, you can just say Amadon. And I just kind of thought, that's it. That's the end of that crap.
They laughed and you didn't know what they were laughing at.
I kind of had an idea, but you know, it was just more of that sort of just feeling like a bit on the outside with the Irish. So that was one of the motivations. But more importantly, though, I was just kind of interested in the language.
All right. There are a few things about it, though, since you've got to know it a bit, that fascinate you.
Well, it's definitely a weird language. I mean, like, I've had a good time. I mean, I'm learning it a little bit differently to the way Irish people learned it, you know, in that I'm enjoying it. And I definitely think, though, that it's a weird language. Like, for example, you need God in the Irish language to say loads of stuff. You can't say hello in Irish without God. I went to Connemara. I was like, how do you say hello? They said, well, it's Diagwitch. And I was like, what is that? And they were like, well, that's God be with you. And I thought, that's a bit Obi-Wan Kenobi for me. Like, I just want to say hello, you know, not give some sort of Star Trek interplanetary greeting. So, you know, Fáilte go my planet. August, yeah, and then I was like, okay, so if somebody says Diagwitch to me, what do I say back? And they said, well, you say Dias Muragwitz. And I was like, well, what is that? And they said, well, that's God and Mary with you. And I thought, God, are we saying hello here, having some sort of religious competition? You know? But you can't say hopefully in Irish without God. You can only say Lacuna Day, with the help of God. Fecame Amoroku Lacuna Day, see you tomorrow with the help of God. So I asked them in Connemara, like, what if you don't believe in God? And they said, well, then you can't have any hope.
The way they speak Irish in Connemara, though, it's not quite the way kids learn it in school, is it?
No, Tasha, you're going to fool, all right? Like, if you said to me, how do you feel? I'd say, oh, Tommy fucking delighted to be on show. But, oh no, Tommy happy, no dear fat. Yeah, you know, like, they don't say Leroy.
There is no letter called W in the Irish language.
No, there's no W, but God knows you hear W all the time. Like, they don't say Leroads in Connemara, they say ball, so when it becomes my ball, it becomes my wall. We all know they don't say Raher in Connemara, they say bicycle, so when it becomes my bicycle, it becomes my bicycle. In fact, walking around Connemara, you'd swear Jonathan Ross was following you around everywhere. W's all the time.
Now, you've actually passed an exam, haven't you? Already?
Well, I wanted to do the Leaving Cert, you know? And I really wanted to do the Scrooge Bail, and I wanted to do the written. So I wanted to do the Scrooge Bail because that's the one part of the curriculum that they kind of throw out and say, well, at least this is the one bit of the curriculum that teaches you how to speak the language, but I think we all know that it doesn't teach you how to speak the language, it teaches you how to memorize one particular conversation where, and if the examiner decides to go down a different road, you are screwed. You know, like, no, that's not the five minute shield I memorized, actually. So I did foundation level because it was only 2 months. It was only 2 months after I started doing Irish that I did the oral, and then 4 months I did the written. So I didn't want to do the stories because, well, they're pretty depressing. And, you know, and the woman stood on the edge of the cliff looking out as the boat sank with her husband, son, and grandson on it. And she thought to herself, life couldn't get any worse. And then she turned around and the potatoes were black. So I didn't want to kind of get into that, so I did foundation level, right? Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to like make fun of people who did foundation level, but if that's what you did after 14 years, I have to say, it was a little bit easy. Like, not in an arrogant way, but like the first 3 pages of the exam were pictures that you had to match with words, and no word of a lie, you can check the past papers 2007. The first question was a picture of a plane outside a hangar, and I had to match that with Aerofort. So, like, I mean, and then the second question was a car, and I had to match that with car with 2 R's. And I thought, no way, there's no way, like, this is definitely a trick question.
So you don't feel happy with this foundation? Do you think there's any point in it at all?
Well, I mean, I have a joke. I met the Minister Mary Hannafin today, so I'm kind of like, I kind of don't want to say this, but often on stage these days I say that I don't think foundation level should be called foundation level. It should say on the front of the page when it's put down in front of the student that's doing it, this is not called foundation level, an admission of failure from the Department of Education. If you are sitting this exam, we apologize. We have failed you in every way possible. Here's something to do for the next 2.5 hours while the rest of your peers get on with their future. You will definitely not be a primary school teacher. Sorry about that. So
what did Mary Hannafin say to you today when you had a
meeting?
meeting?
Well, in fairness, like, she's pretty cool, Mary Hannafin, and she's a politician, so, you know, you go in there all gung-ho, it's like, I'll fucking show this politician right now what it's all about, and then they're like, they just disarm you with their niceness, and you want them to be evil, and then they're not. So, she was cool enough. I mean, I kept hitting her. You know, there's a change coming, an extra 15% for the oral Irish, so it'll be 50% for oral and listening, and then 50% for the written. I asked her about, remember we talked the last time, I asked her about taking the stories off. She didn't want to do that. I asked her to maybe that on the honours paper only you do the stories, and on the pass you would do no stories, just focus on just speaking.
A conversation and being
exactly,
understood.
that's what I think is more important. So she said, look, I'll make you a deal. In a 1.5 years, when the changes have started to properly come into the cycle, I will go around and I will try to find out if it's working. And I said, look, Mary, I will make you a deal. I will go with you. And we can see if it's working, and if it's not working, then we'll bring in bigger changes. Because I know, like, after a year, I mean, I don't want to give away the secret of the show, like, but after a year, I have pretty good Irish.
Right.
Like.
Well, we're going to see you in action in Connemara, and you seem to have taken to the life very readily. Have a look at this.
But is this what you know, right to work?
Just I tell you.
Huh?
Tá Greann. What do you think? Ag dul shees. Agus. Tá éasca galore. Tá galore éasca again. Agus. I'm sure go all in. Agus. Warga. Still.
Show on Lato. Show on Lato. Lato Connemara.
Yeah, Lato Connemara, yeah.
Lotto Connemara. Anyway, the show is starting shortly. It'll be on for 6 weeks.
Yeah, it starts Thursday night. It's on for 6 weeks. And if anyone is motivated by the program and they want to take immediate action, I have put an Irish language course on my website, desbishop.com, and it's free.
Interactive and all that sort of stuff.
It's interactive. You can record yourself. It's really, I don't want to take up all the time talking about it, but
Okay.
it's on there. You can go tonight and start doing Irish.
Well, we're joined by 2 people. Well, Cillian Fennell, he actually texts in Irish. That's how sort of bilingual he is. And Bláthnaid, I mean, your television career started really through the medium of Irish language. So you both are enthusiastic advocates of the language. Cillian, what's happening to it now? Because I was reading some of the stuff that we found out about you. And when you were a kid, you could speak Irish. But in Connemara, you didn't want to, really, did you?
No, in Connemara, it's the only language I spoke. It was when we went to Galway that on the shopping trips that I would ask my mother, please don't speak Irish
Why?
to us. Because it was associated then with the peasantry, the backwardness, I mean, the only reason we speak it there is because we weren't even worth invading. So it never. So there was this. Yes, the association was with thickness, with, and you felt bad about yourself. So in English, even though my English is brutal, I'd rather speak that rather than be.
Bláthnaid, you had the same experience in the Gaeltacht than Meath.
Yeah, I did, and also I had it with my daughter. She's now 11, but when she was 3, she said to me, "Mommy, Mommy, ná lar Gaelige or gurtin chama veil. Don't speak Irish to me because it hurts my mouth when I speak Irish." You know, she was embarrassed to be seen in Duns or wherever shopping me speaking Irish to her. That was in Dublin.
Yeah, but everything has changed a bit, hasn't it?
Yeah, you go to Galway now and you just go through the shops and people are actually speaking it louder to be heard. It's a statement of pride. I think a couple of things have happened. I think wealth. First of all, it has risen that boat as well. People have jobs, can stay in Connemara. At that time, you couldn't even get a football team together. I think the fact that the Northern Peace process, the stigma or the nationalist or the Republican division that was associated with Irish, and I think TG Cahat. I think that people have normalised themselves by seeing it and seeing it reflected. And it's you know, you mentioned it on your shows, sometimes Marion breaks into it. It's not the other thing anymore.
Yeah. No. What about the Gaelscoileanna?
They're great. I have 4 kids in Scoileach in Monkstown and Dublin. It's fantastic. Being married to an English speaker, not an Irish speaker, I need the Gaelscoileanna. I need that backup because I don't live in the Gaeltacht. I need that. Like.
What, you need to be able to talk about your husband to your children without him understanding a blind bit.
No, he actually understands every word. But you know, he says to me, he said, "I'm not going to start speaking Irish to you, Bláthnaid, because you'll only correct me."
Red Biro syndrome.
Yeah, Red Biro syndrome.
Now, what does Des Bishop's experience teach us all? Do you think about, you know, you meet children who've gone through the entire first and second level systems, and not alone can they not speak it, but they actively despise the language. Killy.
I think really the first thing is immersion is fantastic. Like you throw yourself into a language to learn it. Second thing is context. I mean, where Des went is probably one of the richest Gaeltachts in the country. And the context there, I mean, the language is above just a form of communication. It's expression. It's every field is named. Every person goes back 3 generations. You were staying in Nora Fat Willie's house, which is 3 generations.
Stay with Nora Fat Willie. They'll be talking in Connemara now. Anthony Fat Willie.
Anthony Fat Willie, yeah.
Just so there's a context there that makes the language much more than just a form of communication. It's actually the way you see it. It's the way you interpret it.
Well, it's alive. That's the most important thing. They're using it every day, you know.
Yeah, but can it stay alive, Bláthnaid?
Oh, absolutely. Of course it can.
I mean, can it stay alive in a really organic way, or is it going to be the stuff of the Gaelscoileanna? You know, a certain kind of elitism about kids who go to... And as well, by the way, they do very well academically in all subjects.
Oh yeah, they do, but for me that's neither here nor there. You know, I wanted to raise my children with Irish, so I needed the Gaelscoileanna, and the Gaelscoileanna are doing very well. Will it stay the way it is? I don't know. I know that my children don't speak Irish the way I speak Irish. They speak Irish with a learned Irish accent, which is fine. I knew I might have had an issue with that in my 20s before I had 4 kids, and I realised it's the future of the language.
I think dull Aaron Dart.
No, no, in fact, ní sé fearailte. Ganéann sé cechi bhfuiltú, ar síle pádar cóla agus dár mo gas ar dís constatamam. You know, that's okay.
I think, Pat, I think there's a kind of an irony that at the time when the country is most open to it, and as I say, the hatred or the visceral maybe rejection of it by some people, or the divisions that it caused before, at a time when they're not there, and Irish is thriving in urban and the rest of the country, I'm still worried about the Gaeltachts, that they're still declining. And that I think is the fountain. Yeah. That you need that richness of Irish.
What about the exams? I mean, the argument for and against compulsory Irish, that you have to take it all the way up. What do you say to that, Killian?
Oh, I don't know. I hate the term compulsory, yet I love the language. I do wish people would speak it. I think Des's point, I think if it was taught nicer, teach people to speak it, teach people the beauty and the richness of it, and to enjoy it.
Yeah, but also, like, I was reading this book about compulsory Irish in education. Like, too much responsibility was actually given to the Department of Education to resurrect the language, because what about all the people in society, not general people that don't use it, but what about all the people with profile who don't use it? What about the politicians who don't really use it? I mean, the responsibility has to be laid more than just at the Department of Education, you know. It's too big a responsibility for an education system to take on.
Yeah, the exams, Bláthnaid, what do you think?
The exams, yeah, I think it should be compulsory. I mean, I had to learn English and I wasn't a native English speaker.
I'd be happy enough for it to be compulsory if it's taught well. In other
Talk
words,
better.
if people, I don't care how well they can write an essay, but as long as they can chat with their peers,
Absolutely.
Gaeilge, I'd be very happy with that as an achievement for any educational system.
Des
Well, it's
has
a bad
achieved-
return. 14 years, a bad return on the investment that
Yeah.
people can't speak it when they
is.
leave. It's a waste of time, actually.
But Des is doing these gigs around the Gaeltacht areas at the moment, you know, comedy gigs, stand-up gigs, and he was in the Gaeltacht I'm from in Meath Racarn the other night. They couldn't speak to me the next day. They were hoarse. They were laughing so much.
My mother was there.
My mum was there. And
a
it
fine
took,
lady for her age.
she'll die now that she said that.
Stump a bra, means a-
I stump a bra.
Stump a
But
bra.
it takes an outsider like Des to come in and, you know, have the crack and say, oh, the modh, coinníollach, who needs it, you know, that kind of thing. And they were in stitches. And his impact during Seacht and the Gaelige, and I know you're done just not just Seacht and the Gaelige, has more impact than any of us speaking Irish, any native speaker. And I mean that.
And that was, I think, an important thing too, which Cahir did. They managed to branch, to leap that leap, the likes of Hectors and Nilos and stuff like that. That made the language that the thing was done at second to the actual content.
Yeah, Russ Navarro.
And people
Exactly.
found they actually could understand a lot more than they thought, and the subtitles help, and this normalization process kind of.
And the more of that, the more of the normalization, the better, because it's so easy to talk about the problems instead of looking at the solutions, you know. There's plenty of solutions outside the Department of Education.
All right. Well, look, thanks, guys, for being with us. Cillian and Bláthnaid and Des. Thanks a million.